AITA for kicking my husband's friend and his daughter out of my home knowing they have nowhere to go. I 32F and my husband 32 meters live with our sons 12 meters and 14 meters and 3 cats. My husband has ASD which makes it hard for him to maintain a job. This hasn't been a problem for me, as I make a decent wage and can afford a modest but decent life for our family of 4. In 2020, my husband worked at a fast food restaurant for a couple months and met a homeless man, who he quickly became friends with. We'll call him Rob 42 meters. One cold night, Rob and his then girlfriend asked to stay with us for a while. We had a guest room, and though uncomfortable, I agreed. After a week, their nightly arguments between each other and general household hygiene were too much to bear, so I kicked them out. When they left, the guest room was trashed, and there were pills and needles everywhere. As a mother, this disturbed me, and I have never stopped being wary of Rob. Fast forward to July 1, 2023. Our guest room has turned into a storage room, and it would take work to get it livable again. Rob has broken up with his girlfriend and has gotten custody of his daughter 15F from a different woman, and her 8-month-old puppy. Rob was sick of living with his parents and burned bridges with them. My husband came to me panicked one evening asking me to go pick them up, because they have nowhere else to go. For context, only I drive. Reluctantly I again agreed to host Rob, mostly because I can't stand his daughter, we'll call her Anne, being on the street. With the guest room out of commission, they take my elder son's room. Both sons have bunk beds, so I figure it will be manageable temporarily. Initially, Rob promises to be out in a week. I knew it was a lie as he had no money and no plans, but I wasn't concerned that it would take longer. My sons are in online school, so he promises to be out by the time school starts 8:14. So my son can use his room for school. Another lie. Living with these two has been awful. They don't pay rent, or do chores. Rob only works about 3 days a week, and eats all our expensive snack food and refuses to eat meals I cook. She ate 12 ice cream cones in 3 days, my son's whole month of treats. Rob has ruined our yard, with cigarette butts and trash everywhere. Their dog is dug in multiple places, and they're not training him not to. My son's room is trashed by them, and they've broken dishes. They don't clean the sink after using it and they don't flush the toilet. Living with them is driving me crazy. Anne is spoiled, but she is very sweet, and she is a child. I don't like Rob, but he says he has gotten sober. At this point, I'm the only one who cleans, cooks and pays bills, and I can't do it for 2 extra people. I told my husband I want them gone before my son turns 15 in October. He said I'm being unreasonable. They have nowhere to go. I told him a shelter may have resources for them and I can't handle this anymore. It is not my fault they're in this situation and I can't live like this, and I don't think my sons deserve this either. AITA for not changing my plans to accommodate my sister's baby. My sister 34F just gave birth to my nephew last week. She's had several miscarriages, and even this baby was born 6 weeks premature. Understandably, she's being very precautious about who is able to meet the baby due to the surge of the flu and COVID. My husband and I are also expecting our first baby, but we're not due until November. This was a planned pregnancy and we found out we were pregnant soon after my sister announced her pregnancy. She was very excited to share the journey together. Before we had our baby, my husband and I planned a couple of last-minute trips for ourselves. We want to enjoy the last remaining months of being able to travel without the stress of baby while we still could. Months ago we discovered there was going to be a showing of our favorite play in a city 5 hours away, so we booked a fancy hotel, made dinner reservations at a nice restaurant, and took a couple days off to go. The day we checked into the hotel, my sister's water unexpectedly broke and she went into labor. She immediately called me and wanted me to drive the 5 hours back home. I asked her if I needed to be there, but she said the hospital was only allowing 3 people in the room with her, and one wouldn't be me. So I told her I didn't want to waste the thousands of dollars I spent on my trip to go to waste. She said fine, but that I wouldn't be allowed to meet the baby because I was traveling and who knows what kind of diseases I was going to pick up. I told her I understood, and wished her the best and to let me know how it went. Thankfully she had an easy labor and my nephew was born a couple hours later. She FaceTimed my husband and I telling us how it was a shame we couldn't meet him until we quarantined for 2 weeks. We said we were more than happy to wait. It had almost been 2 weeks when received a call from a close friend of ours who lives in a city 3 hours away that her husband, one of my husband's close college friend, passed away in an accident. The funeral is Saturday today, so we made last-minute arrangements to go. Now my sister is blowing up our phones and demanding we don't go because we will have to wait another 2 weeks to meet my nephew. I told her, once again, that we don't mind waiting to meet him, but she's saying that we don't care about him. I told her that I wouldn't expect her to change her plans because of my baby, so she shouldn't expect us to change ours because of hers. My parents aren't siding with either of us, which is making her even more upset. So AITA for not changing my plans to make my sister happy? AITA for telling my wife I hate her new job. My wife 37F and I 38M have been married for 12 years and have 3 kids 10, 8, 6. During the pandemic, my wife's job allowed her to switch to 100 WFH. They never required her to go back to the office because her productivity actually increased, so there was no need. It made things easier for us too. I dropped the kids off at school daycare in the morning and she picked them up in the afternoon. She was able to keep up with a few things around the house during the day. We saved on gas and car maintenance, etc. A few months ago, she was contacted by a recruiter about a job. It would be a nice step up in her career path as well as a boost in pay, but there were drawbacks. The company had no WFH policy and would require her to work in the office. This was apparently non-negotiable. It would also be a 45-minute commute for her. We talked it over a lot and I expressed my concerns about how this would impact our daily lives. I told her that I don't necessarily think that the bump in pay is worth the major changes to our daily lives. Not to mention the stress that a long commute can have on people and that could impact their mood and how they interact at home. She assured me that everything would be fine and that we would adjust as a family and soon the new routine would just become our new normal. I told her that I would never tell her not to take the job, but I just don't know if it is worth the changes that it is going to bring. Ultimately, the decision was hers and she accepted the new job. She's been there for about 10 weeks now. To say it has been an adjustment is an understatement. She wakes up and leaves before the kids even get up. She'll help get a few things ready for them before she goes, but the entire morning kid routine is on me. I also do both drop off and pick up for all the kids too. Evenings have been a huge mess because I get home and try to get the kids distracted while I start dinner. When my wife gets home, she is usually stressed from the drive. Her commute has turned into over an hour due to construction and traffic and takes 15 minutes for herself to calm down before eating alone. Then, after dinner she's going to bed earlier because she has to wake up earlier. I told her that I feel her new job has put an unfair amount of household and childcare duties on me and that she is being far less present in our lives when she's home. She told me that we just need to give it more time to adjust and things will get easier. I told her that 10 weeks is a pretty good adjustment period and I hate it so far. She told me I'm being an unsupportive jerk and I need to give it more time. Added I don't have the emotional bandwidth right now to deal with the huge amount of sexist BS I'm getting here. Those kind of responses are why men don't open up when they feel exactly like I do right now and just bottle this up. I have to get ready to pick up my kids. They're getting Happy Meals tonight because F it. I had a guy I went to school with refuse to say he knew me, and then got upset when he wanted something from me. My wife and I had a New Year's resolution to do more hands-on volunteer work this year. So me, being an IT guy, I found a group that refurbishes computers for students. I thought it was a slam dunk. Sounded like an easy thing to do and it was aligned with what I do for a living. On my first day in orientation, I ran into a guy that I went to school with around 10 years ago. I spent 3 years in school with this guy and I immediately recognized him. The guy is on my LinkedIn as well, so I know him. We did projects together. There are pictures of us at graduation. I 100 know the guy. I went over to say hi and he was sort of evasive about saying anything to me. I was initially confused because I thought we were on good terms. When I said, "Hey man, it's me from school," he said he knew who I was, but apparently once graduation was done he decided to move on from school and be done with it. He told me he wanted to deal with adults and wanted nothing to do with people he went to school with. This was despite the fact that we were now in our 30s, so we weren't exactly students anymore. So that kind of hurt, but whatever, I respected his decision and left him alone. There were a dozen other people there so I went about with orientation and everything. I didn't see the guy again for the rest of the day. A couple hours later when we were all done I had met a few people who were actually sociable and we decided to go across the street to a pub. I was in a good mood and told them the first round was on me because I had a good day. So we go over to the pub and that guy shows up and sits down at the table. I asked, "What are you doing here? I'm not buying you a drink. You don't know me." Guy called me an asshole and a bunch of other colorful language and walked away. I explained to the group I was with the situation and they were like, "WTF?" I got an email from the event coordinator yesterday. Apparently the guy complained about me. Said I'm not a team player. Luckily, the coordinator heard my side of the story and was fine with it. So I'm good. But I have to continue dealing with this guy if I continue going to volunteer. So, what the hell? I like the organization and want to continue with it. A few people have mentioned to me that I should have just bought the guy a drink, but out of principle I won't put a drink for someone who disrespects me. Am I the asshole for telling the guy to leave the table at the pub? Added just for clarification, this was a college friend, not a high school friend. AITA for building my 25GF24 a fitness regimen and diet plan after she told me she felt like she was fat. I love working out and am an avid gym goer. I minored in exercise science in college and worked as a personal trainer for 3 years. My girlfriend is not a fan of the gym or exercise. She doesn't do much physical activity at all if she doesn't have to. This is not a huge point of contention for us, However, I feel that it would be a nice cute little shared interest for us if she would give it a long enough chance to see the fruits of her effort. But that's neither here nor there. So recently we were getting ready for brunch with friends and she put on an outfit, looked in the mirror, told me she couldn't wear it because she looked cubby. I told her I thought she looked fine, but if she's more comfortable in something else, cool. This happened like 3 more times before we left for brunch. On the ride there, she told me that she's ordering whatever I got since it'll be a healthier food. A pattern of this behavior persisted for about an entire week before I thought it was getting concerning and asked her about it. She told me that she hasn't been feeling great about her weight. She said that she got too big for multiple things in her closet the last year. So she weighed herself and saw that she went up from 130 pounds to around 160. So she's been feeling fat. I told her that she's not fat, and I think her body is great the way it is. She said that she needs to figure something out. So I got a bit excited. I thought this meant that she was now looking for solutions to her weight gain. That evening I spent about 6 hours designing a safe, healthy fitness regimen and diet for her to follow for the next 90 days. I thought back at all the things she doesn't like about her body and thought about what would be helpful to that part of her body. She is very insecure about the size of her butt. She of course wants to have a bubble butt like all the sexy TikTok gym girls have. I made the perfect exercise regimen for her to follow. I also decided to find a ton of macro-friendly recipes and make a recipe book for her, including, like I said, this was over 6 hours of work perfecting this for her. This was a labor of love and I thought it'd be a great gift for her. So the next day I asked her to come over to my laptop and pull it up for her. I told her that I know how she's bothered by her weight gain. So I made this for her. I explained everything to her and told her that it's something we can do together and I was excited to help her with it. She was not happy. She went from disgust to anger to tears. She cried and told me that I was such a huge asshole for this. She told me that if I felt the need to do all of this, that obviously I didn't like her body and wanted her to change. I tried to comfort her and tell her that wasn't the case and I made it because she wanted to lose weight, but she wasn't hearing it. I genuinely don't get how what I did was wrong when I was doing my best to help. AITA for hiding my saving from my fiancé. I recently got engaged to my fiancé after 2 years of dating, and told her we should probably start looking at houses. She told me that we didn't have the money for a deposit on a mortgage, but I personally have a lot of money in savings. It's a little bit more than $160,000. My girlfriend was initially just shocked because it is a lot of money for a 24-year-old to have saved. I've been extremely lucky in life. After a couple of days she began to be annoyed at me. She felt like I was hiding this from her. I told her that I didn't hide it from her. I was just raised to not talk about personal finances with anyone other than someone you're married to, and I figured engaged is close enough that I'm happy to talk about it. I also said that I had actually used these savings to help her before. I paid her rent a few times when she couldn't and paid a couple $1,000s for her dog to get surgery. She was still quite angry and has been giving me the silent treatment for the past day. My parents don't see the problem. Her parents understand my perspective but think I should have told her when we moved in together last year. None of our friends know because I don't feel comfortable talking about it with them. I've already asked her if we can talk about it when she's ready and she just said she'd let me know when she was. I don't think this is relationship ending, but I know she probably wants me to admit I was wrong. I don't think I've done anything wrong, so I'm asking you guys more so out of curiosity for what others think. AITA for not allowing my sister to take photos of me and my nephew together so he can look back in the later years. Throwaway. I 23F have a sister Janine 26F. Janine is married to her husband 41M and they have an 18-month-old son together. Since I was a teenager I've always been a private person. I don't do social media. At work I don't talk about my personal life and I only talk about work-related stuff. When I'm with family I don't discuss my work life. Because I'm a private person my family has no idea what I do for work, what my salary is, and they also have no idea what university I went to or what degree I picked. I'm just going to give a tiny bit of context of my family life. When I was 15-16 my mother, a single parent, started getting sick and I became her carer. By the time I was 17, she couldn't do anything other than stay in bed. By the time I was 18, my mother had passed away. I'm not going to lie, it was a struggle because I was doing my GCSEs and A-levels and managed to just pass them. I explained my extenuating circumstances to my 5 choices of universities and all 5 accepted me. Since my nephew was born my sister has become obsessed with taking pictures of her son every single day and is constantly sending them to me. I don't have any insecurities about my body, but I just like leading a private life. And I haven't taken a picture in 5 years. Every time I come around to see my sister, Bill and nephew, my sister is constantly trying to take pictures of us together and has only managed to successfully take 2. Whenever my sister has her phone in her hand or is near her phone I will step away from my nephew as I know she wants to take a picture. My sister recently worked out why I do this and she thinks I'm being an asshole because she wants pictures of my nephew and me together so that when he's older he can look back. AITA for this? AITA for not giving up my seat and embarrassing the woman who demanded my seat. A few years ago I 16F lost my left leg in an accident. I've been using a prosthetic leg since then, and because my family as well have, it is a pretty advanced one to the point where it just looks like I just have two normal legs whenever I wear long trousers. Which I usually do because I'm really self-conscious about showing my prosthetic. These days I can pretty MCH do anything I like without issues, walking, running, going upstairs, etc. The main issue is keeping my balance when there are sudden changes in movement, in places like trains and buses, which is where the topic of this post comes in. I was riding the train and sat down in the seat reserved for disabled, elderly and pregnant women. It was pretty busy so there were no other seats available, and a few stops later a woman came up to me telling me I needed to move, because she needs that seat and I shouldn't be sitting there. I told her I was sorry, but I needed the seat myself. She got all argumentative that I just need to get up, because the seat is meant for the elderly and I'm just a lazy child who is more than capable of standing. I again apologized and said I really needed the seat myself. She left and got the train conductor, who also told me to get up from the seat. I was really done with being treated this way now, so I rolled up my trouser leg, showed my prosthetic and told her I wasn't going to move. She suddenly got very red-faced and mumbled something before she got off at the next station. AITA, I could have said I have a prosthetic right away, but it's a really touchy subject for me and it makes me feel very self-conscious. That's why I always wear long trousers so nobody can see or has to know. AITA for not wanting my wife to refer to me by my first name when talking to my kids. My wife recently started using my first name when referring to me to our preteen kids, as in Steve's gonna pick you up from school tomorrow. I asked her not to when I first heard it, saying I don't really like when you use my first name to the kids. Can you say your dad or dad? She said Steve is your name. I don't see the problem, but I eventually got her to see things my way. A couple months go by and I had heard her say it periodically, like Steve can pick what to have for dinner. Finally today she did it again, and I said babe, I know we talked about it before, but can you please use your dad when talking to the kids? And she says it's totally subconscious, it's not like I mean to. You're probably going to have to remind me again like 50 times. At this point, I said that's not really acceptable. If you hear me and respect my wishes, it doesn't need an excuse or hedging, you can just say okay. She started getting upset, yelling and said I was being difficult and should just accept that she can't control it. I didn't think it needed a big discussion, and finally diffused the situation by saying sure, I believe you'll try. It just sounded like a cop-out for no reason, setting us up for the same discussion sometime down the road. AITA here? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding. My sister 28F recently announced that she's having a destination wedding in a tropical paradise. Sounds amazing, right? Well, here's the catch: she expects everyone to pay for their own travel and accommodations. Now, I 32F love my sister and want to support her, but attending this wedding would be a huge financial burden for me. I've been saving up for a down payment on a house, and the cost of the trip would set me back significantly. When I told my sister that I couldn't afford to go, she got really upset and accused me of not caring about her happiness. She even said that I'm being selfish for prioritizing my financial goals over her big day. I tried explaining my situation and suggesting alternative ways to celebrate her wedding, like throwing her a local reception or helping with wedding planning, but she wasn't having any of it. Yesterday, I found out she had been telling our extended family, who were also going to the wedding, that I had refused to pay for my share and told her that she was a snobby brat for making everyone pray for themselves to go to her wedding. My phone has been blowing up with texts and calls either defending me or calling me rude, a brat or selfish. Now I'm feeling guilty and torn. On one hand, I don't want to miss my sister's special day, but on the other hand, I don't want to sacrifice my financial stability. AITA for refusing to attend her destination wedding. AITA for suspending my daughter's allowance. I 37M have two children, my son who is 13 and my daughter who is 15. My wife was the one who came up with the names for our kids, as I never had strong opinions on a baby name. My wife decided to name our son after her great-grandfather. I never questioned it and never bothered to learn more about him, which looking back was probably a mistake. A few months ago, our son was at a party with his friends from baseball, and they were sharing TikToks with each other. One of the boys shared a TikTok about an almost name, basically, like it sounds, what your parents almost named you. One of my son's friends asked about my son's names and he mentioned who he was named after. The boy decided to type the name into Google and was scrolling through results until he found something interesting. My wife's great-grandfather was a state legislator in the southern U.S. before the civil rights era. As you may have guessed from that, he was a segregationist and voted in favor of bills to maintain segregation. When we picked our son up from the party, he started to yell at us and we had to calm him down. He asked why we would name him after a bad guy like his great-grandpa. This started some arguing in the car, and when we got home later that night, We discussed it. Our son told us he talked to his friends and he was changing his name, and that was final. My wife was a bit upset. She grew up here in the South when I'm originally from a hippie little town in New England. My wife has become a lot more accepting since we met. But this was still a bit hard for her. She eventually accepted it though and moved on. We now refer to a name chosen by our son with the help of his friends. His classmates at school have started to use it, and while he's had some issues, it hasn't been terrible. One of my son's friends is a trans boy and he has had it worse, though my son and his other friends always work on protecting the boy from bullying. My son's new name is one he's proud of and named after someone he looks up to. Recently he got some items with his new name, like a men's necklace and a sign in his room. The issue is, a few days after he got the items with his new name, which was 2 weeks ago, our daughter went and ruined them by breaking the chain on the necklace and banging his sign. Our daughter doesn't like the name change, saying her brother is just being a sensitive zoomer and something about boys being too weak these days. Our daughter has said edgy stuff like this in the past year or so, even when we condemn her. As a result of the damage, my wife and I told her we were suspending her allowance until the price of the damages were paid back. Our daughter is saying we are being unfair to her, and has apologized for what she did. My wife went on her Facebook moms group to ask for help, and most of the moms agreed we were too hard on her. AITA for telling my parents and brother that if they wanted his ex removed from my wedding pictures they had to pay for it. My brother goes through women like I go through socks. I gave him A+1 for my wedding 2 years ago. He brought his girlfriend at that time. When we were doing the family pictures he wanted his girlfriend in the pictures. I said we could do some with her and some without. He got mad that I allowed my sister to have her fiancé in all the pictures and my other brother was allowed to have his boyfriend of 5 years, but that I had the audacity to exclude his girlfriend of the week. My parents said that they didn't want any fighting and to just include her. They were paying for everything, so I said fine. She isn't in all our pictures, just the ones with our family and both families. Now my brother is engaged and we had the family over last weekend. His fiancée saw our wedding picture on the wall and got into a fight with my brother. He never told her that he had been in a serious relationship with her nemesis. He tried explaining that they only dated a very short while. She called bullshit because she was included in the family picture. She asked to see our wedding album. Sure enough, the girl was in multiple pictures with the family and the in-laws. My brother finally carved her down but has asked me to take down the picture or have his ex removed. I said that it was expensive so he would have to pay for it. He tried complaining to our parents. They said that I was being childish. I reminded them that they were the ones who insisted I give in to him. I said that they were welcome to pay for the editing. They said I was a jerk and that they already paid for the pictures once. AITA for telling my sister she is not allowed to compare my daughter's death to her cat. So I F38 lost my daughter 15 just 2 weeks ago. She got leukemia 4 years ago and it just ended up spreading throughout her body. She fought very hard for a long time. Cancer is such a bitch. I watched my poor baby suffer so much because of it. Anyway, since the loss of my daughter, a lot of people have been trying to comfort me and I understand they are just trying their best, but it doesn't always help. My sister, who doesn't have kids of personal choice of hers, F36 specifically, has been the worst at trying to help me. A year ago she had to put down her 16-year-old cat whom I lost a pet before. So I know how difficult that can be, but it's different than losing my actual human daughter. She has said things like, I know how you feel about daughter's name because of the loss of cat name. She was my child. I understand animals are like family, but my daughter and her cat aren't the same. I was trying to just ignore her and let her comfort me with how she felt. But today she came over and started talking about how she knows exactly how I feel because of her cat. I finally got upset and said, no you don't. Yes, pets can be part of the family and mean a lot to you. I understand losing your cat was hard, but my daughter was my daughter. So until you experience this type of grief and have to see your daughter die slowly from a horrible disease, you aren't allowed to act like losing a cat is the same thing. My sister got mad and called me a heartless I talked to a few people and they agreed that I acted like an So imagine AITA for telling my sister she's acting real entitled, expecting her ex to ensure all her kids have the same. My sister was married to Toby for 6 years. They had 2 kids together in that time. My niece is now 9 and my nephew is now 8. They divorced pretty soon after the kids were born. Toby has remained single, but my sister remarried 3 years ago. She has a stepdaughter from her husband's past relationship and they have custody of his niece as well. They also had a baby together 2 months ago. My sister and Toby share custody of their kids. Toby is better off financially than my sister. He pays child support for the kids and he covers all medical expenses per their court order. But Toby can still afford to treat them and buy them stuff they want. According to my sister, they have fancy lunch boxes, whatever that means. They have gaming consoles and laptops at their dad's house. He takes them fun places and can pay for a birthday party wherever they want. He'll also buy them nice clothes and shoes. I never saw the problem with this, but my sister said it caused some tension in their house because the girls are jealous of what her kids have and are jealous of the fact they have much better birthday parties than them. My sister actually told Toby he needs to start ensuring that her other kids have the same things. She said he's making sure their kids together will never bond with their stepsister, step-cousin and half-brother by making it clear they have more. She told him he also needs to invite those kids to the parties he throws for their kids. Toby told her no and said it was her job to worry about her other kids, but he's not doing a single thing for the rest of her kids. My sister has been pretty ragey since he refused and she complains about it a lot. Eventually she told me all about it when it was just the two of us, and she mentioned how she wants Toby to basically pay money for the girls and her new son, and that she wants him to buy them gifts and let the kids she shares with him bring the stuff he buys them to her house so everyone can get a use out of them. She said it's selfish for him to not care about the other kids. She claims he has a responsibility. I said she was sounding very entitled with that attitude and she needs to understand she's responsible for more than 2 kids, but Toby, he only has 2 and is only responsible for those 2. My sister said it's not entitled to expect people to put the kids first and fuck me. AITA for telling my wife to stop hovering over our living son BC of our deceased one. I 39 have been married to my wife 39 for 13 years. We had 2 children together, Sean who would have been 19 and Marcus who is 14. Almost 3 years ago, we allowed Sean to go on a camping trip with some friends. During this, he was injured pretty badly by jumping into water that was not meant to be messed around in. We lost him after a few days. My wife and I blamed ourselves, but specifically my wife. Since this, Marcus has been in arm's reach of my wife 24/7. He rarely goes out with friends, he's rarely unsupervised, which is just not good for a 14-year-old boy. Marcus finally argued back, said he really wanted to go out fishing with his friends and friend's dad and didn't see a reason why he couldn't go. My wife shut it down immediately, said absolutely not, and that if he wanted to go out he'd have to wait a day one of us were off work. After Marcus left the room, I spoke to my wife and told her maybe it wasn't such a bad idea him going since his friend's dad would be there. She said no, he just couldn't, and not to undermine her. I told her she needed to start letting Marcus have a life, and she needed to stop hovering over him just because she lost Sean. My wife completely blew up on me, crying, saying she could be as overprotective as she wanted, she was his mother, and I had no right to say that because I am as aware as her that the world is too dangerous. She then told me not even to mention this idea to Markham BC. It was a big solid no. She's since seemed to be avoiding me and just hiding away in her office. AITA for canceling Christmas. I 31 am tired of planning vacations for my ungrateful husband 33 and win. My husband and I have been together for 7 years, and married for 3 months. We both work high-stress jobs, with high incomes and no children. We are frugal and spend our money on savings and trips. In our relationship, I plan our retirement, keep track of finances, host friends' family, arrange gifts, make appointments, and plan our vacations. We travel a lot. For his part, he does laundry and cooks and does the dishes more than me. He gets along well with everyone and is the more easygoing one. On our trips, I've asked my husband to help me with tasks ranging from helping me plan beforehand, to finding an Uber. Usually he ignores me until it's too late and I have to make the decision, or he makes mistakes getting an Uber to the wrong place, or forgetting beach towels I asked him to bring. Mistakes aren't a big deal, but he places the blame for them on me. This issue is not new to us. For our wedding I did 99 of the planning and he promised in return that he would plan a honeymoon. Right before the wedding he looked up a Costco package that was almost twice as expensive as we'd agreed to spend, and that didn't have guaranteed spots. What I really wanted him to do was not to find an all-inclusive unaffordable trip that we didn't go on, but do something that was tailored to us. My husband also has a twin brother that often comes along with us. Like my husband, his twin doesn't help plan and he had never thanked me for planning trips for us. He behaves like coming on the trips is a gift to me. Outside of this, I've tried to be his friend, but I feel no reciprocity. I get him gifts for his birthday and holidays, text and call him, and include him, i.e. asking him if he wants me to write his name on a Mother's Day card when he hasn't helped pick a gift. Right now, we're all on a flight back from Hawaii where I researched hotels and flights, put together schedule, booked hikes and dinners, rented a car, etc. When I brought up the fact that they complained a lot and never said thank you, my brother-in-law said that he told me the sunset was nice and that is the same as a thank you. When I told this to my husband and explained how upset I am with both of them for not helping me, not yelling but definitely not in a calm way, he told me to F myself. My husband also said that if I cancel future trips that I'm no longer invited to my in-laws' Thanksgiving, the one thing his mom plans. I've already planned and booked an elaborate 3-week Christmas trip to Italy for the 3 of us. They say they want to go, while doing nothing, but I just feel exhausted. At this point, I'm considering canceling it entirely, canceling my own portion, or canceling one or both of their portions and going solo. Would I be the asshole if I took one of those paths? TLDR, burned out wife unsure about how to proceed after planning numerous unappreciated vacations for husband and brother-in-law, thinking about canceling an upcoming trip. Wibta, if I told my mom that she is the reason that she doesn't have a relationship with my kids? Long story short, over the past 13 years my mom has either consciously or unconsciously made decisions in her life that have created obstacles to seeing her grandkids. Examples: moving to a different country and only giving me a week notice, and again moving to a state on the other side of the country when a neighboring state was on her short list of places to move to. I can count on one hand the amount of times she has been to visit my kids. One of the times she came to help with the kids, I went to take a shower and came out to the living room when I was done, and my kids 4.5 and 1.5 at the time were there by themselves with the front door wide open. Went to find my mom, and she said she needed a break. So she went to the guest room and played solitaire on her iPad with her hearing aid turned off. That was the last time she was left alone with them. There have also been several times when she has not only been in my state visiting friends, but also been less than an hour drive away and still couldn't squeeze in a half hour on her way to the airport to see us. We talk on a fairly regular basis, but she never asks to talk to the kids. She constantly forgets their birthdays. Here's the kicker. Recently a family member got married. I got us an Airbnb to stay in, and I think I saw her for about 3 hours in that house total. The wedding had open seating ceremony and reception, and she actively chose not to sit with us. She is now complaining about not having a relationship with her grandkids. She keeps bringing it up and I bite my tongue every time because I know it would be a huge argument, but I don't think I can take much more.